I did it wrong. Hold on. Let me do it again. There we go.
No.
Yay. Man, I suck. All right. Welcome to Hail to the Podcast, brought to you by Maize and Blue Review. We cover Michigan athletics for the Rivals Network, which means you can find us at michigan.rivals.com. We've made that easy for you. That was supposed to be my happy birthday introduction for our Intel Insider publisher, the boss man himself, Mr. Josh Henschke. Happy birthday, buddy. I know you had a good weekend.
Yeah.
Did come back with a cold. So how was your weekend? How are you doing?
Yeah, I did. I'm good. Everything's good. Everything's good. Yeah, I had a really good day. Appreciate all the kind words. Yeah, just here's to another 365, another year closer to 40. So that's great.
6, right?
Yes.
I thought so.
Next year will be old halfway. So
I am turning 39 this year. This is the last one. So also joining us, probably feeling young as hell right now after that conversation, Mr. Brock Heilig, who you just turned 21 the last birthday, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
I don't remember if we talked about this, but when we were in Nebraska, we went to like multiple dinners and stuff, and I kept trying to like purchase a drink for Brock, and he kept saying no. I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, I'll grab the beer for you, whatever. And he's like, oh, I'm not old enough. And I was like, what?
Yep.
Doing good, Brock?
I'm doing good. Yep. It was fun to watch. I got to watch a little bit of Oakland men's basketball, Jack Golke and Trey Townsend. That was a fun experience. And they came up just a little bit short of the Sweet 16, but overall, pretty good year.
Yeah, should have won that game too.
It was close.
Yeah.
They had it.
I love stories like that, man. Like that level of star power immediately in the tournament and then capitalizing on that. That's what NIL is also supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
You saw the I think it was TurboTax or Tax Cut. I don't remember which one. And then B-dubs and just really cool. And then obviously that program. And how long is the coach? Is the coach 40 years?
Yeah.
Right? Unbelievable, man. Just a cool story. Our old buddy Davey Scoops jumping in to say happy birthday to Josh. Josh, before we get going, tell us about our sponsor. And then, guys, this is a loaded show. Lots of football spring intel. Obviously, the basketball coach hire, that pursuit, and where that goes next. So stick around. This is going to be a great show. And make sure you're dropping in the comments, being a part of the conversation, and throwing questions our way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, before we get started, I obviously want to shout out our sponsor of the show, West from My Perfect Franchise. And again, if you're looking for something that, a change of pace in your career or just something that, is completely different than what you're doing now, hit up my guy West. He will, his services are 100% free. So, it's a risk-free phone call. And, what's the worst that can happen? You get a free phone call and, if nothing comes of it, then nothing comes of it. But again, it's totally worth your time. So would you like to escape corporate America for good? Maybe you'd like to start a business on the side and keep your corporate gig. Wes can help. Wes is a franchise consultant as well as a business owner, can help you find a franchise that fits your skill set, financial requirements, how much time you have to commit, and more. A franchise is a business startup and operations kit, perfect for those with general business skills who may not have specific knowledge on starting and running a small business. His services are 100% free, like I said. And he's here to help if you have any questions about business ownership, and you can reach him by phone at 512-970-7478. Again, that's 512-970-7478, or see him at the web at myperfectfranchise.net/about-west. Again, that's myperfectfranchise.net/about-west. And again, thank you, West and My Perfect Franchise, for sponsoring the program. And let's get on to our regular scheduled program.
Absolutely. So, like I said, loaded show today. First week of spring practice. which means plenty of overreactions and hype already starting to get out. Michigan had its pro day as well. I think we'll save a lot of that draft talk for another day. I will say the conversation around JJ McCarthy, I knew the man was going to be polarizing, but oh my God, it's just crazy. This seems to happen every year, and it's getting like more and more out of control. The stuff that CJ Stroud went through last year, I mean, some of it was like borderline cruel, right? Like, and all these, I'm a draft, like, what am I looking for? I'm obsessed with draft stuff. I love mock drafts. I love all the conversation around it, and I'm starting to get really sick of it. Like, I don't know, like, what teams you think are going to pick who and like what prospect is intriguing, but now it's become this, like, I'm going to predict whether somebody is going to succeed or fail, and I have super hot takes about it. And when I'm wrong, the next year it won't matter. I'm just going to keep doing it, and it's annoying the hell out of me. But anyway, Michigan was kind of the center of the football world with the pro day and all the teams coming in. And then obviously we had some player access today, some comments from that, but let's get into it. So the spring game, kind of interesting. I thought in the past it's been on Big Ten Network. Sometimes it's been on delay. Sometimes it hasn't been televised at all.
Yeah.
This year it's going to be on Fox, April 20th this year at noon, broadcast on Fox with Joel Klatt in attendance. Ohio State is the week before. They're also going to be broadcast on Fox. This is part of the money being invested in the Big Ten by these networks and the eyes and the access that we're getting. So unfortunately, we'll probably have some games on Peacock as well, but very interesting. The spring game at the end of, or not the end, but third week of April, they're going to be broadcast on Fox. That was pretty cool. So Josh, first guy I wanted to get into, the conversation around Donovan Edwards has already kind of shifted, I think, frankly, since before the Washington game, where he was very candid about some of the mental obstacles he faced last year, coming back from his injury and some of those early struggles. And then coming into this offseason too, once he decided to return and kind of embrace this leadership role, we've just been talking about Edwards a little bit differently. And now we find out the dude has completely embraced this adversity and took on the challenge. He's added 14 pounds of muscle, just absolutely jacked. His mind seems to be in the right place. He's becoming more of a leader. His body's in a great place. Really excited about the trajectory of Donovan Edwards in this senior season.
Yeah, I think, I mean, even, Kirk Campbell hinted at it. When did he speak to the media? Like 2 weeks ago, a week ago, something like that. He mentioned early that, we've seen Donovan around all the time. He looks great. He looks football ready. And just seeing him today, you could tell that there was some significant bulk added to his frame. I mean, the guy looks big. He looks significantly bigger, and that's going to bode well because, he's not going to be a 30 carry back, but he needs, to be a guy that can carry a little bit more of the load and can absorb some hits. I think that's one of his, biggest knocks is that he's really, he's susceptible to going down at first contact, and, adding 14 pounds of muscle or just 14 pounds. I don't know if it's all muscle, but just adding 14 pounds to his frame.
Gave him a lot of credit there, didn't I?
Yeah. I mean, it's all semantics anyway, but, adding that kind of mass to his frame, goes a long way in that regard. A lot of it too is, as you said, the mental aspect of, trying to find the right holes and hitting the holes and stuff like that. But, I think a lot of people kind of discounted how much missing the spring kind of impacted him. And I guess I'm probably victim of that too. I was kind of thinking, it's Blake and Donovan. It's fine. They can afford to miss a spring, but it does mess with your momentum a little bit. And we kind of saw that with Blake too, that, he was lagging behind a little bit at the beginning of the year and then hit his stride. I think it just took Donovan a little bit longer to do that. And, Blake had his knee thing, but Donovan had multiple things. So it's not just a foot issue. There was a couple other issues as well. So, you saw that stride being hit around Penn State, and really it couldn't have been at a better time. You can talk about his struggles all you want, but when it mattered the most, Donovan Edwards was there. I mentioned Penn State, obviously the Washington game. So yeah, I think, so far in camp, I haven't really heard much about him in terms of just him doing, Donovan Edwards things. So that's good. I'm not really too concerned about what Donovan Edwards does in spring. I'm more concerned about the depth behind him. Specifically Kalel Mullings and Ben Hall and Tavi Dunlap and those guys. Obviously early Friday was the first day of pads. There wasn't any hitting. So that'll start soon. And that's when really I start to take a lot of stock into what you hear, because, a lot of these non-hitting, non-padded practices tend to sway heavily towards the offense because, the defense can't hit. So therefore you can't really shut down much. So, it's good to see that, there's a plan for Donovan and he's really, embracing the struggles. It's something that he's really taken to heart, and I'll be really curious to see how he works with Tony Alford and how he kind of molds him moving forward. And again, that goes for the rest of the guys on the roster too. So, we'll kind of see. I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about Donovan as spring goes on, but even if there's nothing out there that you hear about him, the fact that he's put on weight and looks good and is healthy, I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, it seems like he's rebounded really well from what was a tough season for him. Obviously, he finished well with the two long touchdowns in the national championship game, but he's rebounded well. He's put on weight, like you guys said. Well, something that he talked about today that interested me was he talked about how Kalel Mullings has a little bit of Hassan Haskins in him, and Ben Hall has a little bit of Blake Corum, and Cole Cabana has a little bit of Edwards said himself. And I think that's really, if you're a Michigan fan, it's really encouraging knowing that there's depth beyond Donovan Edwards and Kalel Mullings. And obviously everyone expects Edwards to, have a bounce back season, and Mullings will obviously carry some of the workload too. But knowing that you have the three guys behind both of them, that Edwards talked about having a little bit of each of the last three Michigan running backs is definitely encouraging, to say the least.
Donovan's just a guy I didn't like. When I say didn't like, I felt bad almost for where he was towards the end of last year, because anyone who's been around him or, been in one of those press conferences or even just watched videos with him know just what an interesting spirit Donovan Edwards is, right? And just a character and the aura around him. And he just seems more like himself, right? And just more comfortable. And yeah, he's going to have a huge role no matter what. We've talked about, like you said, Brock, Mullings, the Haskins comparisons, and him maybe being the guy that gets more carries would not shock me. Ben Hall last year, that was the thing that really stuck out. Yes, it's a spring game. Yes, it's a complete overreaction. But his instincts and some of those lateral cuts and the ability to still move forward even when he's making those moves, very Corum-esque, right? I agree with that completely. So this is a room that is a chance to be really, really good. A lot of guys do a lot of different things. You've got good depth there. But obviously, the better Donovan Edwards feels and is playing, the better Michigan's going to be. So, and again, he's embracing that leadership role. We talked about that too. I think, yes, talent has to be replaced and depth is a concern, but leadership might be the biggest void right now, just needing people to step up. So the QB battle obviously was going to be a story no matter what, will continue to be a story until a starter is named, whenever that ends up being. Kirk Campbell, I got a chuckle out of it, but I guess it kind of made sense. Going into day one, said, look, there's 5 QBs. There isn't really any way to separate them. So we're literally going by age and then alphabetical order for day one in terms of a depth chart. Early on, though, I don't think it's a shock to see the name getting the most hype is Alex Orji. He's been front and center in a lot of the Michigan media things, hanging out with the players. Jack Tuttle's dealing with some lingering injury stuff too, that's kind of bringing him back from camp slowly. But those two have kind of felt like the most common names up there. Jaden Davis continues to get a lot of praise about how he's looking coming into his freshman year. Obviously, he's been with the team since the Rose Bowl, doing drills as well. But coming into this, I've told people, look, Michigan took J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback that Jim Harbaugh said is the best in Michigan football program history, who is about to be a top 5 pick, potentially. They took him off the field against Ohio State, Alabama, and Washington to allow Alex Orji to come onto the field. That's how much they trust him, and that's how much they think he can help the team win. If Jack Tuttle or someone else is hypothetically the starting quarterback for this year, Alex Orji's not staying on the sideline. We're probably looking at some sort of 2-quarterback system, right? Like, just realistically. So more and more, this is starting to feel like Alex Orji's job to lose, in my opinion. We're going to have overreactions in this show, just so you guys know. That's the point of Spring Intel, is to overreact. But look, we talked about, we don't want somebody to win this job by default. And I like that they're saying good things about Orji. I like that Jaden Davis is looking good as a freshman. I don't know where he's going to fall in that pecking order. And then obviously you still have Davis Warren and Jaden Denegal involved as well. But Josh, you've obviously talked to some folks that had eyeballs on practice this week, and it feels like the Orji hype's going to be a real thing throughout spring.
Yeah, I mean, again, as we just talked about, I take very little stock into the last week. But if there was a pecking order, I'd say right now, in terms of, how good of a week they had, I would say Orji is number 1. Davis Warren probably 2, and not far behind is Jaden Davis. And then there's Denegal. Denegal, from what I was told from multiple people, didn't have that great of a week. But again, it's so insignificant right now that I'm not worried about it.
Very fluid, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for all we know, Orji could have a horrible week next week, and that totally flips things on its head. But I think the most interesting thing is that Jaden Davis continues to stack good days. I think that's probably the best case scenario for Michigan right now because I think Davis has the highest ceiling out of all of those quarterbacks on the roster personally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a little unfair for me to say that in terms of comparing it with Orji, because we haven't really seen much, but I do think Davis has the highest ceiling out of all of them. And I think having a guy like that, getting at least be in a position, if he continues to stack these days up, to be in a position to be a factor, I think that's a pretty good deal for Michigan. And
especially long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, long term, absolutely. So, I was kind of told that as long as the quarterback play is good, Michigan's going to be in a position to contend all year. And I don't disagree with that take at all. I think they've got the pieces on defense. The offense, I think, they're still in the position of figuring it out. But if they've got a guy that can take care of the football and lead the team in scoring drives, I think they'll be just fine. So, you're likely coming out of the first week looking at Orji probably on top of the depth chart. But again, that's written in pencil and, with the eraser right by it. I mean, that stuff changes every day, and it's not anything even worth looking into right now. And I honestly, even at the end of spring, I'm not even going to be able to declare that there's going to be a clear starter. And I don't think Michigan really wants to do that either. So
I think narrowing down to 2 to 3 guys is probable going into the summer. But for competition's sake, I don't think you want to name a starter by the end of spring.
No, and I mentioned this on the boards in the discussion. Is like, I don't think really Michigan wants a clear-cut starter. No. I think they want it to be so close that everyone has been really good that
Agree.
That they have to kind of figure it out. I think if they have like 1 or 2, then then they might have to make a decision either way. But I mean, as long as the guys behind, a guy like Orji and obviously Tuttle hasn't practiced much either. He's still dealing with his shoulder issues. So he'll be practicing at some point in the spring, but I'm not really sure when. I just know it's soon enough. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm not gonna hype up the quarterback battle right now and say, this is someone's job to lose. It's been literally a week. One guy had a better week than the other, in terms of Orji versus Donegal. And again, that stuff changes. So, if that continues, if you see a trend, then yeah, you can start looking into it. But, I mean, the first week, I understand people are hungry for information and they want to talk about anything not, bad in terms of the off the field stuff. So, yeah, we'll kind of see. We'll kind of see what happens.
Brock, give me the overreaction I'm looking for here, please.
The overreaction you're looking for?
I'm just kidding. Tell me what you think.
Oh, well,
there's nothing I love more than when I tee Josh up and he's like, yeah, no.
I liked what Max and Finn said in the comments about it's going to be Orji and they sprinkle in Jaden Davis more and more. That'd be interesting to me. That'd almost be like in 2021 when Cade McNamara was the starter and JJ McCarthy got plugged in a few plays here and there just to kind of change things up, give the defense a different look. I could see that happening. Alex Orji is the starter, but Jaden Davis is so talented to the point where you just can't let him sit on the bench the entire game, So I'd be interested to see how that would play out. But yeah, Trevor, we talked about it last week, how if somehow by late August, by the time late August rolls around, if Jaden Davis is your starter, you have to feel good if you're a Michigan fan, knowing that the freshman beat out all the older, more experienced guys. You have to feel like he's developed enough to a point where the staff is comfortable starting him, So very, very interested to see what happens there. But yeah, I could definitely see Orji being the starter and Jaden Davis playing, I don't know, 3 to 5 snaps a game.
That Davis is a very interesting part of this, whether he stays in the starter conversation or not, because I think regardless of how this competition goes this year, if you had to ask me to make a bet who the starting quarterback is in 25, I'm saying Jaden Davis, right? Your average fan made a good point. I think that, Davis has the highest floor. Throughout this process of his recruitment, and obviously it's no secret he was dropping in the rankings towards the end there, and then he'd go and do these Elite 11 things, and anytime it was like football, not just shorts, but like football, he excelled. But anyway, what I've said throughout is Davis is really good at the things that are hard to teach in the intangibles. And I think that brings his floor up and puts him at an interesting spot in terms of the difficult throws and then high football IQ and leadership, right? That said, I don't think the high ceiling is what you need this year necessarily. Like Josh said, with the defense and the running game and whatever else. Oh, okay. Are we going to do that?
Yeah, we're going to have to do that.
Are you serious? All right, hold on.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fun. Okay. Somebody asked a question, Josh, when got info, and here we are. So anyway, yeah, like Josh said, it's early in this battle. And sometimes there's smoke and mirrors with hyping guys up and not hyping guys up or whatever it might be. But the thing that sticks out to me with Orji again is the fact that they were already putting him on the field last year. So anyway, we were going to go into the next piece, talk about wide receivers, but somebody asked Josh a question and he is now texting. So feel free to share what you've got there, Joshy.
Oh shit. So I hate to Schefter this, but it's not good news. Yeah, Rod Moore. Someone asked in the comments if he got hurt, and that is factual. He has a knee injury and it's going to be a long-term thing. It sounds like, so, yeah, not great. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Rod Moore obviously dealt with an injury last year as well that lingered into the season. He didn't start early, and they kind of worked him back slowly. His return, along with Makari Page, having those two both back as starters, was a massive deal coming into the season. So he's a guy that really would have benefited from a healthy offseason getting into the year. And, now, long-term knee injury that potentially puts the season in jeopardy. That is a major loss for Michigan. No way around that.
Quentin Johnson coming back suddenly turns into one of the biggest moments of the offseason at this point. That's huge.
That's
you're
massive.
looking at Makari Page and Quentin Johnson. So
yeah, and your average fan brought it up. Keon Sabb. I still understand Keon Sabb's decision. I do, because it's pretty clear he wants to go to the NFL next year, and at Michigan you're going to get rotated. Even as a starter level player, you're going to get rotated. Blah blah blah. He's going to go get his 800 snaps at Bama. But I mean, this is part of it. He'd be lined up for a massive role this year at a defense that not only he knows, but is largely tailored to his style of play. So, look, this is just coming in now, so it's easy to have reactions. But man, like you said, Quentin Johnson coming back. A lot of the things we've always talked about anyway, Zeke Berry, taking a big step as that third safety, arguably, and then Brandon Hillman is a guy I've kind of pegged as that Keon Sabb level type breakout as well. So you'll have to give us some time here. We're literally finding this news out with you guys as it comes in. So yeah, Josh has confirmed Rod Moore did suffer a knee injury that is of the long-term sort, we will say. Don't want to start getting into naming tendons and things like that, but well, there you go.
That's interesting too, because literally earlier today, Makari Page was talking about how Rod Moore has, stepped up as a leader. Makari Page was asked what defensive players have stepped up ever since Mikey Sainristil left, and Rod Moore was the first name that Makari Page mentioned. So either it just happened today, or Makari Page is he was hiding something, but I don't know. It's weird. I guess, players aren't just going to go out and say that kind of stuff, but
no, and I wouldn't expect them to, but man, all right. All right. I don't really want to dedicate the whole show to that. So let's keep chugging along with the stuff we talked about. Obviously, major news. Josh is going to continue to take an information work on that. And then we will have more coverage on this over at michigan.rivals.com inside the den as soon as we wrap up here. And then Josh, if anything else extra comes in, will obviously butt in. But yeah, bummer, Rod Moore. All right. Segue. Big question mark about this team coming into this year, and some early hype already. Not a shock. The wide receivers or pass catchers, including Colston Loveland in this group. Who's gonna be wide receiver one? Who's gonna step up in that? Tyler Morris got some freakish athlete label early in camp. Not new. He's been getting that tag since he arrived in Ann Arbor, coming back from his injury, obviously. Samaj Morgan, freshman breakout star last year, looking to take a step up. And Colston Loveland just continuing to look like the best tight end in college football. Those are your top three. We obviously had news this week as well when the Michigan roster was released and Carmelo English was notably absent. Josh was able to confirm he is no longer with the program. So that wide receiver room that was already thin, getting even thinner. So I think we know how we feel about some of the guys at the top in the elite talent, but the depth behind them continues to be a concern.
Yeah, I'll go since Josh, I know you're working on stuff. Here's an overreaction for you, Trevor.
Yes.
I'll overreact and say that wide receiver one is currently not on the roster.
Ooh.
I think Michigan gets someone big from the portal. I don't know who it's going to be, but I'd say wide receiver 1 is not on the roster. You look at then Tyler Morris and Samaj Morgan as kind of the wide receiver 2 and 3. Obviously, Loveland's in there too. Loveland might lead the team in receiving no matter what, no matter who Michigan brings in from the portal or doesn't bring in. Loveland might still be the leading receiver, but I do think in terms of wide receivers, Colston, Michigan will get its wide receiver 1 from the portal.
Yeah, Colston Loveland was wide receiver 2 last year, arguably, depending on how you want to rank it, receptions, yards, touchdowns, whatever, combination of the 3. But just put in perspective here, Roman Wilson, obviously, if I asked you if he had a good year, you'd say he had a great year, right? 48 receptions, 789 yards, and then obviously the 12 touchdowns. Colston Loveland was right there, 45 receptions, 649 yards, only the 4 touchdowns. And we talked about how close that year relates to Jake Butt's 2016 season. So the idea that was his sophomore year, he's coming into a junior year where AJ Barner's not here. I do think Marlon Klein, Josh, is somebody that is tagged as the obvious tight end 2 coming in. Josh Beetham, former walk-on, is a guy that's still continuing to make noise as well. And then you've got a bunch of young dudes. Brady Prescorn, obviously, coming in as a freshman too. So there's a lot of tight ends there. But Loveland, I think he played wide receiver until late junior year, even senior year, just because he literally just grew into a tight end. So this is one of those wide receiver trapped in a tight end's body kind of thing, right? Like a Kyle Pitts kind of guy. Yeah. So I'm with you. I think he could arguably be wide receiver 1 no matter what. In terms of the portal, we've talked about this. We don't know who's going to jump in later. Right now, a guy I really like that I'm surprised there hasn't been a lot of smoke is Kyle Ford. It's a former 5-star recruit that Michigan was in on, ended up going to USC, transferred to UCLA, has not met the expectations in terms of, production, but that's a guy that just makes a lot of sense in this offense. You've recruited in the past, big body, outside receiver. And then, at this point, they might be targeting smaller guys too. I don't know if it even necessarily matters, Brock. We've talked about the big body receiver so much, but behind Morris and Moore, you've got, I keep getting these M names mixed up so much. I said Moore. Morris and Morgan, you've got Moore. There we go. So Fred Moore's a name there that people are expecting to take a leap up. But otherwise, you're relying on freshmen maybe. Marion Stewart coming in.
Yeah.
And having an impact. Channing Goodwin. I know the Peyton O'Leary, height machine might be there as well. But yeah, they might add 2 guys in the portal at this point. So I'm with you. That's the kind of overreaction hot take I've been looking for.
Yeah, they're gonna need some work there for sure.
The offensive line for a group that is replacing 5 starters, there's not really a ton of questions right now. I think we have a pretty good idea of how that depth chart is already shaking out. I think the biggest question we had was arguably between left and right. The 2 guards, we expected, obviously, Giovanni Helhadi, who has been fantastic in limited duty, was a guy we thought would start last year, but Trevor Keegan and Zach Zinter both return. His play has been at left guard. Josh Preeb, who transferred from Northwestern, guy with a lot of experience, played at left guard. Early practice, this is real early, like Josh said. I'm sure they're going to move dudes around a ton. But early, we saw Preeb at left guard, Elhadi at right. And then the tackle spots, obviously Miles Hinton is a guy the staff really believes in and thinks something's just got to click. He's got an elite level. It's just been inconsistency for him. They think he can be one of the best tackles in football if he just clicks and he gets that consistent factor. Sounds like he's been getting the work at left, while Andrew Gentry, another former top 100 recruit, took a couple of years off for a mission trip. He's coming into year 3. That's a 24-year-old man. And then you start to think about this entire offensive line. For being new guys, they're all old and very large and in incredible shape. And then Greg Crippen, who I think is going to be a captain, is just the Michigan man story, right? He waited. They brought Olo in over him. They brought Drake Nugent in over him. He, early signs, looks really good, has embraced his leadership role as well. Just kind of a cool story between him and Elhadi waiting their turns. But Josh, that's kind of where we're looking at with the depth chart right now. Do you think we're going to see a lot of movement, or Do you think that is this maybe settling in a little easier than we expected?
Maybe. Probably a little too early to tell, but I mean, I think for the most part, you have a general outline of what the offensive line is going to look like. I think, out of all of those guys, I think Greg Crippen's having the best spring so far. Again, 1 week, I know, but I think you've got the general outline. Excuse me. You've got the interior guys mostly figured out. I mean, you can start from the middle on out. Crippen. I know El Hadi didn't didn't practice last week on the Friday. I don't know why. I don't think no one really seemed that concerned that he wasn't practicing.
You're going to see that a lot, especially in spring. Anything light, they're going to.
I mean, there's always little, muscle tweaks and all that stuff as they get back into football shape because, no one's really doing football stuff in the off season. And so, you saw guys like Preeb step in there and also have a really good week. Jeff Percy played a little bit of left. Yep. Even a guy like in who played in El Hadi's absence, Nathan Afobe, he also had a really good week. We're told that he looks the part physically. I don't know if he would be the guy if not El Hadi, but I think I think there's at least a general blueprint of who they want there and who they hope steps up. Like Miles Hinton, you can probably write him in Penn in the starting lineup, and I think he's looked really well, really good. He's moving around well. I think the problem a little bit with him last year is that he was banged up for most of the year, and you have Ladarius Henderson there too, so that's just what it is. But again, Preeb, another guy that you can pretty much write in Penn. Crippen, Penn, El Hadi, Penn. So now you're kind of figuring out what you do with Andrew Gentry, I think is the big, I wouldn't say question mark. I don't think question mark is the right description there. I think he's the more of the unknown. Is he ready to play at a big time level? And again, looks the part. Can you trust him in a full starting role? And we'll obviously find out as spring goes on and as we get into fall camp. But I think Andrew Gentry is probably the one where there's maybe more of a true battle going on there. I wouldn't say it's a full blown like 1v1 guy, but I think it's Gentry's job to lose at this point. And I don't think it's a bad thing if he loses it. It just means that someone else played better. You've got choices there. You're fortunately you can play Percy at guard. You can also play Percy at tackle too. So it's just what Michigan has done really well is having these guys be versatile. So so I think a lot of it is just kind of letting these guys settle in and just maintain these top spots and stay healthy and kind of get through the spring and see where you're at. But Josh Preeb is probably going to be another excellent addition through the portal. And, another guy, Jaishawn Barham, we're going to talk about here soon, another excellent addition in the portal. So and just outside, I know you mentioned the portal earlier with the wide receivers. Yeah, I don't think they're done adding, not necessarily to the offensive line or linebackers, but this was, as we were saying, and especially now with Rod Moore hurt, this is what the spring was for, to look at what you have and then adjust from there to get your needs. So, does Michigan go to the portal for safety now? I don't know. That's obviously a to be determined type of thing. Wide receiver, yeah, they could probably afford to add a guy, especially because you lose Carmelo English. You don't have much depth there, so you could probably afford to add they don't necessarily need a bigger guy. A bigger guy would be helpful, but they don't really throw the home run shot very often. But it all depends on who enters the portal too. And I know we kind of say, well, it's kind of early, it's kind of late in the year for some big name guys to hit the portal, but with NIL and stuff these days, anything can happen, and you just don't know what's going to happen in terms of job statuses elsewhere. Guys who are maybe promised a job and didn't get it, now they want to go find a job elsewhere. That's also another possibility. So yeah, there's still a lot of unanswered questions even after spring's done. I mean, I refuse to believe like this roster is the final form of Michigan football this year. I mean, there's just so much time between now and the season starts. Anything can happen. Any addition can happen. So, to go back to the offensive line, do I think this is what that starting offensive line is going to look like? The El Hadi, the Crippen, Miles Hinton, all those guys. Yeah, probably. And I think Michigan will be just fine. But it all just depends on, their needs, what they have, and kind of who enters the portal there too, if there's a fit. So, it's going to be an interesting time for sure. And yeah, as I said, I don't think this is the final form of Michigan's roster for this year. I don't think so at all.
Yeah, you're looking at a potential starting offensive line of all seniors, and that'd be the second year in a row, if I'm not mistaken, which is unheard of. That's unbelievable. 2 consecutive years of, all seniors on the offensive line,
especially the transfer portal era. Yeah,
it's right. And if Gentry happens to beat a guy out, then okay, he's a junior, but he's, like you've mentioned, Trevor, he's 24 years old. So last week when it was just me and Trevor on, I quickly corrected myself when I said that the offensive line was young. They're not young. They're actually probably one of the oldest ones in the country.
Yeah.
But just inexperienced. We know these guys are very, very old. They've been in the program a while. Josh, you talked about Greg Crippen, or Trevor, whoever it was, talked about Greg Crippen waiting his turn, El Hadi waiting his turn. Yeah. And these guys have waited for years. And here they are. It's their time to shine, and I'm expecting big things from the offensive line. It'll take some time to gel. We'll see what happens at tackles because, like you said, Josh, Preeb, Crippen, El Hadi are basically all locks. I think we all agree on that at this point in the spring. So we'll see. We'll see what happens at tackle, but I expect this offensive line to be pretty good in 2024.
Yeah, I think the continuity piece is a big deal. Last year we saw them let the competition kind of bleed into the season and in some ways hurt them, right? With an all new starters, these guys, the sooner, when the quarterback battle, I think the longer that competition goes, the better, because you're pushing these guys. The offensive line has been in a competitive environment for years, right? So at this point, once you've got your guys, I think the sooner you can get the ones to stay together and really start to click is the better. Good to hear Afobe's name come up. Amir Herring's another guard as well. So Ottawa Traveler, Raheem Anderson's another guy that's kind of been waiting his turn. So when you think about depth and that 6th offensive lineman that they like to do so much, they're in a good spot. And it's easy to say they have inexperience, but hey, Preeb's a 2-year starter. Miles Hinton 2.5 technically. And then these other guys have been in this system learning from the Keegans, the Zinters, the Olus, the Nugents, right? Could be worse, put it that way, right? And yeah, I wouldn't be shocked, like Josh said, if they do continue to look in the portal when it comes to that.
Real quick, I want to answer your average fans question here. Yeah. They only added Wallace post spring, but this year is completely different from last year. So I mean, maybe they do.
The 1 year rule. I was just gonna say the 1 year rule is gone for one. So anyone who transferred the previous year can still transfer again. You had a lot of late coaching staff changes this year too, that some guys, it sounds like potentially stuck because they had no choice from an enrollment standpoint too.
Right. But, yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe they, once April, I forget, was it April 15th or something like that when the window opens? I mean, maybe they add another guy in July or whenever they added Wallace. I think it was like June.
Yeah, I think it was late June.
Yeah, so you never know. I mean, grad transfers might be the way to go because you've got 1 year fillers where I mean, and again, I don't even want to hypothesize what they're going to do with Rod Moore. I mean, that's such a devastating loss. Like I can't begin to even describe how much of a big loss that is for Michigan. That you really can't fill that spot. So like, yeah, it's so devastating that you're basically like, it's almost to the point where he was almost basically gone with everyone else to the NFL. Even like it's like he never even announced that he came back. You know, it's
except him coming back arguably cost you Sap.
Yeah, which that's the way she goes.
Your average fan said, "Let's pull a Proctor here."
Yeah, right. I don't know what you do. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
anyone just joining, Josh was able to confirm Rod Moore has suffered a lower leg injury of the long-term sort. We haven't really speculated on, ACL, MCL, meniscus, any of that, but it does sound like an injury that's going to hold him out potentially for a very long time. So yeah, you feel for him, and obviously from a team standpoint, bummer. An exciting guy. You brought him up earlier, coming into the defense. A transfer they did add along with Preeb early on in the season, Jaishawn Barham from Maryland. This is a 2-year starter coming into his junior year. Seemed very, very likely Junior Colson was going to leave, so he was an obvious replacement there. And so far, filling in, not shocking at all. Looks like he's filling in pretty well at that Mike linebacker role. I've said a bunch. I'm always biased to somebody I've watched do really well against Michigan. So Barham was the only player not on Bowling Green to intercept J.J. McCarthy last year. So look, that's a big physical linebacker that gets around, impacts the run game, can drop back in coverage. Not shocking to hear he's fitting in early.
Yeah, I mean, if you want some Kool-Aid, I got some Kool-Aid from
Give me Kool-Aid.
Jaishawn Barham. I had one person that was at the practices tell me that there would be zero drop-off between Jaishawn Barham and Junior Colson, which, yeah, it's Kool-Aid, but at the same time, I can see that, though. We've seen
Barham play.
Barham is a very good linebacker. We've seen him play before. I mean, we've seen him pick off JJ, but, is that a bit of a stretch? I don't think it's that much of a stretch. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's a little Kool-Aid. Yeah, chug it. Go ahead. That's fine. But, I don't think it's all that insane to say. I really don't. But I think ideally, again, it all just comes down to building depth. I mean, that's why Michigan was, I would not be surprised if Junior Colson is the first linebacker taken off the board in whatever the third round. But I think as much as he was really good, I think the depth there also played into why he was so good. And yeah, he was injured. I mean, he played with 2 clubs on his hands. That guy is a warrior. I mean, that guy is tough as hell. He could play for me any day. If I had a team, he would be the first one out of a toughness standpoint I'd pick. But I think just from out of I don't know. I don't think Junior Colson to Mike Barrett to Ernest Hausman and Jaishawn Barham is that much of a step down, if any. I think, yeah, there's probably going to be a little drop off just because they're veteran guys and they know the defense really well. And yeah, Hausman played some last year and he was, he played well. But I think both of those guys from a talent standpoint, you've got 2 really good linebackers, or I really don't think you're going to see much drop off there. I really don't. And so getting Barham, I think, is probably one of the more underrated moves Michigan made this offseason that I don't think a lot of people are going to be talking about right now. But once the fall comes around and you see him play, you're gonna start to see why this was such an important get for Michigan.
That's a bad looking dude.
Yeah, it is.
Like that's a bad
running at you and giving you a spear shot. Yeah,
yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how much they plan on rotating. I know we've talked about this a little bit already, but there's potential for there to be some pretty big depth or pretty deep depth at linebacker. You're looking at Jimmy Roller coming back. He was banged up last year. Micah Pollard can rise. Jaden Hood, we heard, had a really, really big fall camp, and then kind of just we never saw it materialize in the season. You've got a lot of guys there, and I'm interested to see. Obviously, Barham and Hausman are 1 and 2, and they'll be out there the majority of the time. But I'm interested to see how much can the younger guys develop and give Barham and Hausman, a break if they need it, and so that they're not out there playing every snap. I think late in the season, if I remember correctly, Colson and Barrett were out there literally the entire game. And so I'm interested to see what happens with the younger guys, how much they can develop to potentially spell Hausman and Barham if they need it.
Yeah, because this is a group that has been led by Barrett and Colson at a almost exclusive level, much more in 22, right? 23, like you said, Hausman did play, maybe not as much as people thought earlier on in the year, but I mean, it was basically Colson and Barrett show all through 22 and for a lot of 23. So
Thanks.
Sorry, that caught me off guard. Yeah, this is the deepest that room's been in a few years. Jaden Hood is such an interesting player to me because you're right. A lot of fall camp hype last year. Brian Jean-Marie, for those who don't know, recruited Jaden Hood to Michigan.
Junior Colson too,
yeah. When he left for Tennessee, that was kind of a big deal, was trying to keep Colson and Hood here. So going to be interested to see if that clicks. Roller, obviously, coming back from an injury last year, had a rough play against Ohio State, but he's a guy that could come in. We could get into all the young names, but you're right. We could see a lot more of those, and we probably will, because there's a good chance that, especially in this defense, Barham and Hausman potentially could be gone after next year. Would be shocked if one. I mean, it's real early projection. I'm not going to say one way or the other, but those are guys that have potential to have the kind of years where looking to the NFL wouldn't be a big deal. So I thought Barham was, as soon as he entered the portal, I was like, yes, please. Right. Just the way he played, Big Ten linebacker, just such a perfect addition in replacing Colson. But I'm with you. I'm excited to see the depth develop there. I love what you have at the top with him and Hausman. I think that's a great duo. And again, another position where you're replacing all of your starters and you're like, not really concerned about it, right? So let's skip this part. Obviously, the Rod Moore news has kind of added a lot of time to our podcast today. So we were going to kind of get into the defensive line coach search. Really all I wanted to touch on there, and Josh has intel on this inside the den over at michigan.rivals.com, just that Sherrone Moore continues to swing for the fences. And I'm very, very, very intrigued, not only by this hire, but looking forward. Sherrone Moore was dealt a tough hand this year with Harbaugh trying to poach guys, and obviously some late departures and trying to fill a staff in February. I think he did an excellent job. There was a lot of questions about whether he was going to rely on Jim and John Harbaugh's Rolodex, whether he was going to lean heavily into his own connections, or if he'd be willing to, go after some of the big guys out there. And the answer has been a little bit of everything. But it's clear at this point that Moore believes Michigan football is the top, the pinnacle, and anyone that comes here, it's not a lateral transfer, and he's going for it. So I don't know what's going to happen with defensive line coach yet, but like I said, Josh has had some intel over there. Bigger picture for me has just been, I'm very excited about the way Sherrone Moore has been going along his business. We were going to talk a little bit about Tony Alford, just because the response to him has been incredible. Again, Josh has a bunch of intel on this, where we've seen offers go out and a lot of response to some of the best running backs in the 2025 class. I know Bo Jackson, which I'm sorry if your name is Bo Jackson and you look like that kid looks, I want you to come here.
What a name. Well, what makes it even more hilarious too is that kid's from Cleveland too. That'd be hilarious in its own thing.
Yeah. So lots of good notes coming on the recruiting trail. Insert SpongeBob meme. I thought he couldn't recruit Ohio State fans. We'll see. Obviously, he's got to get the guys here. But the way people feel about Tony Alford and how maybe putting him in a run first offense, #smash, that this could be a really good fit for Alford. So off to a hot start there. Obviously, Edwards had some good things to say about him. There were some weekend visitors. We've got some visitors coming. I know Willie Fletcher, a guy I really like, edge recruit out of Detroit King, has confirmed he's coming this week. There was some running backs, young players in. Again, intel over at the Den. We're already close to an hour, so I do want to get into basketball. But for those just joining us, Josh has it on there. We did confirm Rodmore injury, lower leg, expected to miss significant time. And all of these things that we've been talking about. If you're not a subscriber already, Michigan.rivals.com. You can find a lot of that there. So this is actually a good question. I do want to talk about this real quick because I was going to kind of sneak it into the defensive line coach piece. The edges, Josh, file this again into not a surprise, week 1, early height, blah, blah, blah. Derek Moore, Josiah Stewart looking good as expected. Stewart has switched to the number 0 jersey, which he wore at Coastal Carolina. So that's going to be interesting to see the 0 coming off the edge and not being Mike Sainer still, but those two guys leading the way, not a shock. 2 names. I know TJ Guy on the weak side is somebody we've been intrigued by, but 2 guys on the defensive line, one an edge and one sounds like it's probably moving inside, but Eno Etta is getting a lot of hype as the strong side edge backed up with Moore and rotating there. There was some thought that maybe he would add weight and move inside. Looks like he's really kind of getting into that Mike Morris type role, a guy that will play on the strong side and can move in to that 3 tech. And then Cam Brandt is a guy that sounds like he's been getting some early hype too, maybe more like that Chris Jenkins replacement, the 3T, 5T defensive tackle.
Yeah, no, they need that depth. They absolutely need that depth. And getting that from Etta and also Cameron Brandt too. I mean, he's a name that's had a really good week too, which is big. So, the more depth they can build there, the younger depth, the better, because, Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart aren't going to be around forever. As long as they keep that going, I think they'll be good. I think, Etta will be, we'll see some time this year. And, I think they almost have to play him because really, I mean, they need to shuffle some guys in and out. So
he's quickly becoming it's very early, but when I keep thinking about breakout candidates, he's becoming my guy for sure.
Yeah.
Brock, real quick, before we get into basketball, anything on the edge spot you want to touch on?
Edge is really similar to what we just covered in linebacker, where you have 2 guys who are clearly the leaders that could be gone after the season. So very similar to linebacker, got to get some younger guys up there and see getting them some snaps so that if Moore and Stewart do declare after the 2024 season, you're not sitting there with an empty cupboard of edge rushers.
And it's cool too, because we've seen this. I know that the staff is very different, obviously, but there's a mentality that's going to stay. And we've seen them, they adjust to the strength of the team. We've seen them go all in on Hutchin Ojabo and pepper in Mike Morris. We've seen them go largely committee approach the year with Mike Morris. Then obviously last year, the 4 guys, I mean, all 4 of them were starters. Obviously McGregor and Harrell have left. So coming into this year, Brock, you've talked about this a ton. It's going to be interesting to see if at a TJ Guy, are they going to be not necessarily on equal footing, but heavy in that rotation? Or are we going to really see Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart take off, because they both have the absolute potential to do that? So football coverage is going to continue, guys. Plenty of it over at Michigan.rivals.com. And then obviously we'll have more leading up to the spring game. And then of course be at the spring game. And that's when the Kool-Aid's going to start. Nothing better than overreacting to the spring game. So obviously big news with basketball. Michigan hired its man in Dusty May, Florida Atlantic coach. As expected, I'm buying into the hire more and more after it happens, right? That tends to go. Brock, you and I talked about these candidates last week. I think what's really come clear, and Josh maybe can get into this, I think we both said, look, getting Otts from Iowa State was probably the dream scenario. I think that was probably our top pick. That's a guy that's done it at a P5 level in the Big 12, which is arguably the best basketball conference. he's his third stop in Iowa State. Feels like he's pretty comfortable staying there. Really wasn't an option. Dusty May, Darian DeVries was another name who it looked early last week. Him and West Virginia were just synced from the beginning. There was just no way that wasn't going to happen. That has happened. Dusty May, by all accounts, was going to Louisville.
Yep.
That felt like a done deal in many ways. And again, Josh will probably get into this. The discourse over Ward Manuel on this hire is just borderline hilarious to me. But anyway, calls up John Beilein, who has been involved in this process basically from the beginning. As soon as Ward reached out to him to gauge any potential interest in coming back, once it was like, not really, but maybe let me help out, advise. Meets him in Florida with Dusty May, talks some program notes. Beilein leaves the room, and Ward closes the deal and gets Dusty May. At the end of the day, I think home run hire is a very odd term. I think it largely just means a big name that everybody knows, right? May was the top target of this cycle. Ohio State, May was their top target until Jake Diebler gave them no choice but to keep him. We know he was Louisville's top choice, and Michigan gets him. I think it's a big hire. Obviously, how good will he be or not? We don't know, and nobody knows, right? I do know some ball knowers, guys that know basketball better than me, seem intrigued and excited about the hire. So, point is, they went out, they got their guy, and we are in a new era. But Josh, if you want to talk about just the pursuit, Beilein's involvement, just kind of how this happened, because what was it, Friday, Saturday morning? That coaching board was starting to look a little rough with a non-Dusty May hire.
Yeah, Michigan would have been in a tough spot if they couldn't have landed Dusty May. I mean, it was clear from the start that he was Ward Manuel's number one guy. And credit goes to Ward Manuel for utilizing his resources, going out there and getting his guy and changing flight plans to meet up with May and coincidentally meeting and all and getting all that stuff done over the line. I think it was just a great job. I mean, people will say what they want about Ward Manuel, but in this case, I think he deserves a lot of credit for utilizing his resources. People say, people are saying, oh, why does he have to involve Beilein to make a hire? Utilize your network. This is what it's about. You have a network, utilize it. It's not about, oh, I can't hire my own guy, so I got to get someone else to do it. I mean, they were in the room together.
I got bad news for folks that don't know how Jim Hackett got Jim Harbaugh here.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
There was a lot of people involved in that.
Exactly.
So,
it's in any hire ever. It's not typically a one-on-one thing. They use back channels, agents. They talk through people if they're in the middle of a season or whatever. I mean, it's and Michigan used the search firm too. So he was Beilein was part of the advisory board on the search firm. So it's way more nuanced than a guy makes a call to a coach, pitches at your school, and whether he accepts or denies that pitch. It's way more of that and way more complicated. There's so many layers to it. So basically what it came down to was just kind of Beilein pitching Michigan and also discussing basketball philosophy. And because guess what? Ward Manuel is not a basketball guy. He's not going to be able to talk about X's and O's of basketball with you. I mean, that's just the way it is. So it was a talk about recruiting philosophy, NIL, just general basketball talk in general. And I think May is a lot similar to Beilein than people realize, and the two hit it off.
That's becoming obvious. I agree.
Yeah. So I think this is a very Beilein-esque hire, and I don't know what people's thoughts about that if I say that, but I think it's a very good thing. I think the closer that you can get to continuing Beilein's program, the better you are. And now with May putting an emphasis on NIL, good things will happen. I think I believe good things will happen with this basketball program sooner rather than later. So, I mean, as your average fan mentions here, I know May hasn't proven much. I mean, yeah, I know a lot of that success has got to do with the Final Four run with FAU, but it's FAU,
right?
It's not easy to win there, and so, give me a guy that's winning, but it's I
Brock,
think it's a bit higher, and I think this will bode well for Michigan's future.
Brock and I talked about that when we went through the candidates last week. The idea of the Final Four run and buying into just that makes me a little nervous. That was kind of my hang up with May, but the more I've looked into really what he inherited at FAU, what resources he had available, and just how successful he really was, I feel better about it than I did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. I'll be honest, when the news originally broke, I wasn't 100% sold, and I'm still not 100% sold on the hire. But I do agree with what your average fan said. A lot of it does have to do with the Final Four, and this year, FAU goes, they get an 8 seed, and I'll be honest, I'm not an expert on the FAU roster. I don't know, if they lost a key player or two between last year and this year, or what happened there. But the fact that John Beilein was a part of this hiring process, for me personally, makes this hire a lot more comfortable. For me, I'm a lot more comfortable with the hire, knowing that John Beilein was there asking the questions, and it wasn't just Ward Manuel working through it. Obviously Beilein helped a ton, and Ward's not totally incapable of hiring his own head basketball coach. But, John Beilein, the greatest Michigan basketball coach in history, being there, asking Dusty May the questions, picking his brain about certain things, it helps. So yeah, I'm still not 100% sold, just because a lot of it is based on that Final Four run, and they didn't have as great of a year this year. But I have faith that John Beilein and Ward Manuel heard what they needed to hear in order to trust Dusty May to get this program back to where it needs to be.
And sometimes a lot of it's just fit, right? Does Michigan fit May? Does May fit Michigan? Right? That's a big piece of it. And the Beilein conversation, I think, is simple. It's, hey, I know what this program was under you. I know what the challenges have been and where the program is now coming through Jawan. Tell me, John Beilein, why you were successful, and can I do that now? Right?
Yeah.
Like that's what we need to know. And it sounds like, too, just from a personality standpoint, or a human element, his family, his wife specifically, it sounds like they really like he's familiar with Ann Arbor, for those that don't know, but they like this community. They really like the alumni base. They're really excited to be a part of this program, and that makes me excited too. And look, frankly, I'm old enough to remember when Michigan hired the defending NIT champion, and this fan base said, how are we going to get back to the tournament if we're hiring an NIT guy? And then year 1, year 2, year 3, all the way up until year 6, people questioned, why are we sticking with this guy? This isn't going to work. And that was John Beilein. So again, I think it's a crapshoot when it comes to these coaching hires, unless whatever the equivalent of Jim Harbaugh is, right? If you're North Carolina and Roy Williams, your alumni becomes available, right? Stuff like that. That's you get in this home run hire category. But I don't want to minimize May at all. But the fact of the matter is, people are talking about, yeah, but it was only FAU and stuff like that, right? I'm telling you guys, and I don't want to get into it, but the names after May, you wouldn't have been happy. just being honest with you. And you talk about, we brought up Jerome Tang too on the last show, like very similar, longtime assistant, 2 years at Kansas State, had the Elite 8 run with the transfer portal. Like, okay, but we're starting to talk about this is a good thing. I'll leave it at that. Josh, you kind of touched on it. People have been asking, what do you give to this? I don't know if I'm going to call it rumors or smoke or whatever, NIL admissions moving forward. We've had the admissions conversation a million times. And I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but again, it's not the only obstacle. This team missed the tournament with Hunter Dickinson, Kobe Buffkin, and Jet Howard, right? They were the worst team in the Big Ten this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Caleb Love didn't get in, did go to Arizona. Would have been great to have him here. If you guys think Caleb Love was worth 14 wins or something, I mean,
no way.
You know, come on. The Terrence Shannon thing, I think, was a little bit different too, and I get it. But anyway, basketball has always had a little bit more difficult of a challenge than football just because of the timing of enrollment and things like that. But you've already talked about NIL, and I know some people took this the wrong way when we talked about Juwan and how he handled NIL, and some players even came out and were like, he fought for us and blah, blah. There's a difference between fighting for the players and NIL and going to the collectives and working with the groups that can make it better, right? Yeah. Nobody is alleging that Juwan Howard did not care about his players. If anything, that was his greatest strength. Players love Juwan Howard. We know that. We know he had concerns about NIL, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Asking, not doing. Thank you. God, your average fan like reads my mind all the time. I appreciate you, buddy. So anyway, what can you tell me about some of this smoke? And I'm assuming you're not going to tell me Michigan is lifting all of the admissions restrictions they've had.
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from. I haven't heard that, so I don't know where that stuff's coming from. I mean, maybe there is some sort of concession being made, but they're not going to wholesale change what they're about just for athletics. I mean, go to school, go to class, get the grades, and you'll have credits. So I don't know. But I mean, the fact that the notion that I've seen these comments a couple of times that, Juwan, didn't get anything and they're giving everything to May. Well, May's working for it. And, and I know I took some flack from the players when I posted what I did about NIL last week. And, I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not pulling bullshit from thin air and making this stuff up. I have people, high-ranking people from multiple collectives that have told me that Juwan didn't do anything for NIL. I mean, that's fact. I didn't make that up.
Use your eyes, guys.
Yeah.
You can go to the collective site and see the list of all of the events. And Michigan basketball had one signing event total. Their first one was just this October when they had the massive pep rally event. The only player they sent was Joey Baker, right? You've seen the Cheese It Those Who Stay campaign. You've seen the football collective work. So, yeah. Sorry, I just buttoned in. I wanted to defend you because I thought that was a little crazy.
No, I didn't. I mean, I don't care. I mean, the players are standing up for their guys. I mean, whatever. They were the worst Michigan basketball team in decades. I mean, that speaks for itself right there. They didn't get it done. I mean, there wasn't enough there to get it done. So, yeah, I'm not doubting that Juwan Howard went to bat for his players. I mean, that's not what the point is. Yeah, he went to bat for his players to get money, but you got to work for NIL dollars, and he didn't do it. And I mentioned in the post I made, he has cost collectives thousands of dollars of canceled not down payments, deposits for events where he had to where he canceled last minute. And I'm not saying this because of the surgeries or anything like the heart thing. This was pre-heart problems. So right. That isn't because of that. And again, I'm not making this up. People in the collectives are telling me this stuff. They're the ones responsible to get the pay for these events. So it's just the notion that that Juwan was begging for NIL dollars. I mean, yeah, he might have been, but you got to work. You got to work for it. I mean, show me where Juwan was working. Show me how hard Juwan was working. Show me. I'm waiting. Crickets. You missed on a bunch of guys. Your recruiting stunk at the end.
I agree. The winning is absolutely a big
winning.
piece.
Yeah, winning
But
helps.
Go to the collective sites. Jim
You gotta
Harbaugh's
kiss some ass.
quotes are all over those sites, man. I don't know what to tell you.
You gotta kiss some ass, hug a couple of babies, take a picture, go out there and go out there.
Yeah.
I mean, just because your name is Juwan Howard, people aren't going to throw money at you. What are they throwing their money at? What are they doing? These people want their asses kissed. They want to feel special. They want to feel all nice, and these big donors, they want to feel all cutesy that they're important because they got their money and then they're allowed to go see some kids change in a locker room before a game because they gave them $100,000s of dollars. It's about the access.
Yep.
And people weren't allowed to go to practices. So most people weren't allowed to go to practices. It's just, there was a whole thing. It's say what you will. The result, the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding was a little shit puddle.
There it is.
Okay. So, I mean,
as soon as he said pudding, I knew.
Yeah. So anyway, now that's the past. Fast forward to May.
It's gonna be May.
Yeah, it's gonna be May, and there's gonna be NIL dollars because he's already putting in the work. He's got multiple meetings. I know for a fact he's got one NIL meeting or one meeting set up this week with some people to get the lay of the land, major boosters, major donors, to get the general sense of the NIL. And he's got a meeting in a couple of weeks with a major collective to get things set up. There's a plan. And the quote I tweeted out today, I want to read it 100%. Hold on. Let me look for it real quick. Go through he's going to be so much more involved. That's from someone from a collective, a high-ranking person in a collective. He's had how many conversations he's had with Dusty May? One. He had one phone call with Dusty May the other day.
And he already feels that way.
Wow. So there's a concern. There's an effort if you effort yourself with NIL, you're going to get money. It's not hard to get money in Michigan. These donors want to throw their money at you, but they want to feel special. It's like the football program. It's like what Sharon Moore's doing, hiring a GM. Michigan now hired I forget what the title of the thing was, but the owner, the guy who helped found Empower with Jim Harbaugh, he's running, he's like an NIL liaison with the football program. Get the resources. The resources are there. You have to go out and get it. Just because you can't just be like, I'm Dusty May. Give me your money, please. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And it doesn't work that way with the athletic department as a whole when they ask for donations every year. They ask for donations. People get pissed off when their alma mater sends them emails saying, oh, your donation will help so-and-so today. Yeah, that's because they have to go out and get it. You can't sit there and expect money to fall into your lap just because you're Michigan. And I think football learned that the hard way. Yeah. I think at the beginning, they learned that the hard way is that you can't just expect the money to fall into your lap. You got to adapt. You got to be smart, and you got to go
on a return on their investment.
Yeah.
And that can be results. That can be access. I mean,
exactly. And I'm not, for the team NIL shouldn't be funded by fans, the small time fan. I'm not calling it's the small time fans. It's what they are. I mean, they have, the people that will donate $100 at a time. I mean, yeah, that adds up, but you're not doing $100,000 at a time, and you're not paying players.
But even with that, Josh, that's a perfect example of the ROI thing. If I'm a dad and getting my kid to a football game is a tough deal, which it is. Tickets have gone up, parking has gone up, concessions has gone up.
Yeah.
I can bring my young son to the Michigan spring game to get him in that stadium. And then I can go to this pep rally and he can meet and take pictures with and get autographs from all of these players that are larger than life to them. If you're going to ask me for 50 or 60 bucks and I'm creating a memory like that with my son, I can do that because I'm with you. The entire thing disgusts me in a lot of ways that, like, Michigan, Big Ten, college football, these guys are making millions and billions, and we're asking fans to essentially fund this. But when it comes to the big donors, you're 100% right. I need return on investment, and momentum's real, right? Somebody brought it up. Winning obviously brings money in. We've seen the result of the national championship. But Brock, I don't know. We threw a lot out there. I'm sure you're going to throw.
I don't want to say something real quick.
Oh,
something real quick. No, like real quick. I'm real quick, and I'm done. For basketball, it'll only take a couple $1 million to get a fielded team, a good team. Football, you're talking about $14 million or so. I mean, 12 to anywhere from 12 to 10. Let's say 10 to $14 million for a really good team. I mean, you can do it. You can, if you put in the effort, you can get a couple $1 million easy out of someone. That's a tax write-off for some rich dude somewhere. So it's not hard to get that kind of money for a basketball team. These NIL deals aren't that expensive for basketball players. They just aren't, because there's less players, obviously. So again, it's not hard to drum up a couple $1 million if you go out and get it. It's really not. And so that's why you're seeing more concerted effort with Sharon Moore. And now you're going to see that, at least that's what Dusty May has told people. Obviously, actions speak louder than words, but Dusty May's been on the job for like 3 days. So, I mean, like, you got to let it play out. So that's it. That's my rant. I'm done.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add other than Dusty May has his introductory press conference tomorrow, and I am positive he will be asked about NIL. If no one else asks, then I'll ask. But I'm interested to hear what he has to say in terms of that. I don't know how much he's going to, give right away in the introductory press conference, but anything. I'm sure fans and boosters and whoever it may be will be very. They'll have their ears tuned in to what Dusty May has to say about NIL.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to do something similar to what Sharon Moore did, right? In his early stages coming in. But it's clear that he feels good about Michigan in terms of their plan and involvement, the alumni base and the resources that could be out there, the potential, right, to make this work. And then maybe John Beilein serving some sort of role operationally or whatever to continue to help with that bridge, I think would be, I mean, we talked about him coming back as coach and the 1 year thing and all these weird scenarios. Something like that is very intriguing to me, right? And there's potential for some of his assistants to be involved in the staff as well. I'm excited to see what May does to, I don't want a complete bridge back to Beilein. I want May to be his own guy and hire who he wants and his own people and build his own program. But when you got John Beilein sitting there willing to help whatever that looks like, whether it's Ward or May, I'm glad that they took that help. So get close here. So we'll wrap up pretty quickly. Once again, guys, over 1,500 viewers live with us here on Hail to the Podcast on YouTube. We appreciate you all sticking with us, comments, asking questions. Anybody, of course, watching this back or listening on Apple or Spotify, please go to YouTube, like and subscribe, notification bell on our channel. We love having you live with us. We try to make this as interactive as we can. The press conference is tomorrow, like Brock said. Dusty May has already gotten to work in a lot of ways, and that's going to start with the roster, right? We know that Doug is in the portal. Terrace Reed is in the portal. That was weird. George Washington. And then, of course, you've got to still nail down your recruits coming in for 24, including Ruths, who hasn't even signed yet, right? So there's work to be done there. And there's going to be transfer portal additions for sure, right? Yeah. He's got 2 or 3 guys on his roster that people are really intrigued with. You got another year of eligibility left. But we've also heard, too, a intriguing name, Big Ten player that jumped in, and right away people were like, oh, that'd be a good fit. And it sounds like there could be some mutual interest there. So Josh, is kind of what you're hearing in terms of Dusty May and what might be the most important thing, the thing that ultimately doomed Juwan, and that's building a roster.
Yeah. Yeah. So Wisconsin guard Connor Essegian, he hit the portal, yesterday, day before? So, and I hear that there's definitely some mutual interest between Essegian and Michigan for sure. I know May is interested. I know there's Indiana guys, there's some connections there. And I know, Essegian would, if I think if Michigan, I don't know this for sure, but I think if Michigan pushed for him, I would not be shocked if they got him. I don't know if May has reached out yet. I know he's obviously got a lot on his plate right now, so I don't know what his first priorities are. But so yeah, we'll see. I know for a fact that Essegian is interested. He wants Michigan. He likes Dusty May. But I don't know if I know Michigan's interested. I know May's interested, but I don't know when they'll reach out, or he makes a decision before Michigan decides to reach out. But I know that there's heavy interest there, and if I would not at all be surprised if this turned out to be a commitment for Michigan. So I mean, a sophomore, he'd be able to get through admissions. He would probably still be academically a sophomore if he were to come through. So that means he just have 3 years. And who knows? I don't know if he's an MBA guy or not, but I mean, you're talking, you've got 3 years to get a degree. So the academics admissions part of it shouldn't be an issue. So we'll kind of see how this goes, but I think, hey,
I didn't want to. We literally spent 30 seconds before the show trying to get me to pronounce his name correctly, and I felt really good about it coming in. And when it was time to say it, I didn't want to.
Well,
I wasn't trying to hide who the player was. That was just me. For anybody,
it's a sign of a good host. You tee it up and you let someone hit it. That's the way good hosts do.
I literally have a tab up with like the pronunciation of his name, because anybody who watches the show knows that my brain, I do not do well with last names for some reason. So, but anyway,
yeah.
Good catch.
I thought that was pretty cool too.
Just go with Connor E. If you don't want to.
It's Essegian. It's not that hard.
There you go.
But in the moment, it would have come out Estrogen or something.
Estrogen? Connor Estrogen?
Right.
That's funny.
Hey, well, I think if I'm not mistaken, Connor Essegian grew up a Michigan fan. So that's something to keep in mind too. Obviously it'll play out here in the next few days, and Dustin, like you said, Josh, Dusty May's got a lot going on right now. So who knows how quickly things will move. But another guy to keep an eye on, in my opinion, is John L. Davis from Florida Atlantic. He's a guy who's got one more year of eligibility, and he's a stud. He's a guard. I think he averaged like 16 points a game this past season, if my mind is working correctly. So yeah, well, if you guys
18.2.
18?
Yep, 18.2 points a game, above 40% from three. This is a great slash line. Holy crap. 48, 41, 85. I'll take that all day long.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. And he hasn't entered the portal or anything yet, but in today's world of college sports, these guys like to follow their coaches around, and
100%.
And at this point, no one's really safe from entering the portal. So we'll see. But to further add on to the roster, if you thought last year was crazy in terms of transfers with Trey Jackson, Olivier Kamwa, and Amari Burnett, just wait for this offseason, because you're looking at I don't know, you could get 7, 8, or 9 guys in Ann Arbor. It's going to be absolutely unbelievable, the amount of work that Dusty May is going to have to put into to field a roster. And we still don't know about what's going to happen with guys like Terrence Williams and Amari Burnett, Will Cheddar, personally, I'd assume that Jace Howard is going to, find somewhere else to play, but we'll have to see. I mean, you could legitimately be looking at 7, 8, or 9 guys coming in from the portal, which would just be unreal.
Yeah, FAU has 3 guys that could grad transfer right now.
That's center.
They're 3 best guys.
Yep.
Elijah. What is it? Elijah Martin?
Yeah, I think one of them. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep, that's another guard. And then, Vladislav Golden, who has been called the Russian Edie.
Hey, I'll take Edie.
Yeah, those are 3 guys that score double-digit points, play 25 to 30 minutes. More impressively, both guards average 6 rebounds or more per game, play strong defense, hit their free throws. And that's a change too. People are going to see, and that's Juwan Howard brought an NBA mentality here, and he was not the only coach in America to try that. Dusty May is a college basketball coach, man. 3 guard systems, right? Like, I'm going to give a shout out to Dylan from Hoops, who
he's great.
The dude just absolutely loves Michigan basketball. The work he does is incredible.
Yep.
In a year like this, Brock and Dennis, obviously I've shouted you guys out too, because it's a lot more fun to cover a team when it's winning, right? From a job standpoint, but especially when it's something you're super passionate about. Dylan just does incredible work, man. And I've been seeing some of the things he's been saying, looking into Dusty May and talking about just how sound they are analytically, and some other things as well. So obviously we love you guys following our content, but I think this Michigan community, when it comes to the beat and the coverage that we have, everybody brings their own strength. And I am not ashamed to say Dylan, Hoops is just one of the best across the board. And if you want to feel good about Dusty May or have a good idea about where this program is going, early response from him has been incredible. Part of the reason I'm buying in more too. So, but he's brought up those guys and potentially their fit and just what this is going to look like forward. I'm in a similar spot that I was with football. I feel like anxiety has faded. There's a lot of unknown, but I'm intrigued. I'm excited. I went from even Jawan stay or go. It was like, what in the world are you going to do with this roster? So now I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see this coaching staff fill out. I'm excited to see who comes in. And then, of course, I mean, it can't get worse than last year. I don't know. Do you guys have – this isn't even a fair way to ask it because without the roster, but just in general, I know we're looking at a long-term project in terms of sustained success that we saw with Michigan, the consistent Sweet 16 runs, national title contender every 4 years or so or whatever. Is there – what makes you feel good about year one? Do you have any expectations? Are you giving this guy a blank check? Or are there some things, whether it's win-loss or just the way this team needs to look? What do you need to see from Dusty May year one?
I think for me, just tangible improvement.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not like he's taking over a team. I mean, he's not taking over a team. I mean, there's no one left. So it's not like you can have tangible improvement from this. I mean, you'll have probably a couple of holdovers and the same guys, but you're basically taking over just as you said, a blank slate that you can add to your, to your liking. And I think one of the big things that Dusty May brings is that he brings structure on the court. I think what Michigan's biggest problem is they didn't have structure. Yeah. They ran stuff and the guys were just standing around, not doing anything. And you're going, well, what the hell are these guys doing? And so if there's stuff that, if in that regard too, May is very similar to Beilein, that he likes the structure and he likes that, just the fundamentals and all that stuff. But to also, to shout out Hoops too, and Dylan, the analytics really like May too. I've noticed a tweet where he posted all the analytics and they're really impressive during his time at FAU. So I just think tangible improvement, just structure, just something that you can build on. I think that's the big thing. And, whether that's 9 wins or 10 wins, I mean, yeah, that's not the greatest year, but there's some progress.
Yeah.
So am I sitting here right now? I mean, I can't sit here and say right now that Michigan's going to the tournament next year. I mean, that's impossible. I think it kind of depends on assistants, what they have around the program and obviously the players too. So, yeah. I mean, I don't want to say, they have to make the tournament next year, but, yeah, I just think as long as there's structure, as long as there's something tangible where you can say, hey, this was a hell of a big of improvement over what they had, I think you're onto something. And I think number one, that starts with assistance. And, to answer your average fan in the chat there, we haven't really heard anything yet. I know that stuff will start to come out here pretty soon, but there were rumblings that John Beilein could be offered some sort of role on the staff. It's not going to be a coaching type of thing, but maybe it was brought up to me that maybe a director of basketball ops type of role would be there, which, hey, I think that would be great for him. A low, just a low risk type of move that he can just, get his basketball fill, but also doesn't have to go through that grind. So there's that part of it too. So a couple of dominoes still have to fall, obviously, but I think a team that can finish games too, like just an unbelievably bad program at finishing games. I've never seen anything like it. If they can do that, actually, you know what? That's it. Finish games. If they can finish games, then they're already on the right track. That's all I need to see.
What was the success rate, Brock, on the was it Michigan halftime lead and then not cover the spread to lose the game? It was like 8 or 9 games in a row or something.
Oh yeah.
Where they had the halftime lead and then ended up not covering. I think it was their first 19 losses. They failed to cover the spread. Yeah. So the first game, your thoughts, but
the first time they covered the spread in a loss, I believe, was the Purdue game.
Yeah.
Where they lost by I don't know 8 or 12 or something like that. But I mean, it's just really unbelievable how bad they were at finishing. And the only 2 that really come to mind that were close games that they finished were the Wisconsin game at home, which I think was in early February, and then they beat Ohio State on, I think it was Martin Luther King Jr. Day in January. Those are really the only 2. And, that's obviously something I'm looking for. Another thing I'm looking to see is, how they're competing on the floor. I think a lot of times this past year, we saw a lot of guys just out there they didn't look like they cared. And obviously many of them have now entered the portal, and maybe that was a big reason why, is because mentally they were already kind of checked out on the season, and things kind of spiraled a little bit too when Kamwa got hurt and was out for the year. But just being out there looking like you want to win basketball games, looking like you're interested in competing, and actually looking like you're interested in being there. I think that's something I'm looking for. And in terms of tangible, results, it's hard to predict anything right now, just because there's no roster. There are only 4 scholarship guys, but I don't know, work to be flirting at 500.
Yeah. I don't know what I want tangibly, but I think you're both in the neighborhood of what I'm thinking, which is I don't want them to be a pushover, like embarrassingly so, right? Be competitive. Lose because the better team won, and not because you just absolutely crapped the bed. I mean, and to defend the players real quick, because I think it's easy for us to come off like we're tearing into them. Nobody had a harder time with this year than they did. Being on a team like that is very difficult. It's a hard thing to go through. And a lot of those late game collapses were the result of a poor roster in terms of depth. There was 2 empty seats, right? We've talked about, say what you will about the Caleb Love situation, sat on that for 2 months and didn't have alternatives in place. right? And they come into this roster, and you've got at the start of the year, Llewellyn's still hurt. Doug's playing almost the entire game, every game, doing what he can. And then later you bring up Kamwa injury, right? Doug and his bizarre, suspension, which again should never happen, right? This is all on Juwan. Like that part of it, somebody brought it up, like graduating players, them having their grades. Josh, I don't remember the exact terminology you've used, but there's that NBA environment translated into the way the entire program was run. These guys had too much freedom, arguably.
Yep.
Right.
And that's exactly it. That's exactly it. You can't run this program like an NBA program. You got to have regimented stuff. And they didn't have regimented stuff.
Your coach has got to put you in position to succeed. I don't blame these players at all, man. And, obviously I've got it up again. This is UM Hoops site right here. He has the scholarship chart up, and then just a ridiculous amount of content outside of that. He's got it posted right now. Only $3 a month. That's not bad. Two of these guys, like Brock said, we don't actually know. They're technically not counting right now. We've only got 4 on the roster, right? We don't know about Williams or Howard and their potential to return. We don't know if Fat Brooks is for sure going to stay with his commitment. We haven't really heard anything about Anderson. Roofs could be a piece of this. Do you even try to get a Doug or a Reed back? I don't know. I would imagine. I mean, I don't see any path for Doug back after what happened with the academics thing. But at minimum, that's 7 chairs right now, assuming Williams and Howard come back.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's wild, man. It's gonna be a completely different team next year. Completely. I just want to see. I mean, it almost became comical, some of the short clips that were getting shared on Twitter of like the defense just letting dudes walk by, the lack of effort on rebounds. And again, I know what that feels like, right? For that team where it's like, it just feels inevitable, right? Like it's once you start losing, it's really, really hard to stop. Right. And then of course they're not oblivious. They saw the things that we were saying and everybody online was saying. They're playing in front of near empty arenas. It's just a really difficult environment to succeed in. And that was a big reason I thought a change needed to be made, was simply because, fair or not, even if Juwan did come in and say, hey, Ward, here's my plan. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's how we're going to do this, blah, 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 blah. It's really hard to lift yourself back up from that versus Dusty May coming in and having that fresh new coach, new momentum, that spark, right? That's just how it works. Yeah, right? That's just how momentum works. And and that's why you make the change. The change has been made. May will be introduced tomorrow. And wow, if I told you a couple years ago that Michigan would be national champions in football, the basketball team would not make the tournament for 2 straight years, and your head coaches are Sharon Moore and Dusty May. It's what a couple years we've had, man. Unbelievable. So,
yeah.
All right, guys. Again, appreciate you joining us, sticking with us, the comments, the conversation. We're going to finish over 1,700 live right now. It looks like, sorry, drink a little bit more Kool-Aid here.
Jaishawn Barham.
Oh my God. I love that dude so much. I was all over Mikel LaShore being a stud in the NFL because of the game he had against Michigan. Right. Like that's dudes that
it was unfortunately drafted by the Lions at that point. So, I mean, I don't think situation had a lot to do with that too, but it is what it is. Now, if you're drafted by the Lions, it's a completely different story. If you're alive back then during the Mikel LaShore days, then
Oh man, their new uniforms coming shortly. God, I hope they don't mess that up.
The Lions?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Like permanent or just alternatives?
No, all new uniforms. Yeah.
Jeez, I feel like they already just got new ones.
The initial rumor was modernized throwback, which has kind of been the thing, obviously, of recent years. Now, I personally say, in terms of a modernized throwback, give me the Thanksgiving uniforms and just put the logo on the helmet and be done. I think that's such a good, classic, clean look. But the rumor's kind of been, I think the number font will change a little bit, maybe look more Barry Sanders-esque, in terms of the number. I don't know if their unique 3 stripe will stay or what they're going to do with that. I never would have thought this before. I have this. Not with this logo, but I thought it'd be the look of this blue. If you were to put the normal Lion logo on that and get rid of the silver, if you were going to make a drastic change, that would be kind of crazy. But yeah, I don't know. It makes me nervous. I hope they don't, because man, Nike, have you seen the Texans leak of what their uniforms are going to be?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God. It's arena football. These weird number fonts that they do. Yeah. It's not as bad as Tampa when they had those like digital clock.
The digital clock. Yeah, that was awful.
And the helmet logo so big it didn't even fit. Like I just don't understand it.
I'm just glad those massive William Clay Ford patches are gone.
Are they? Did they confirm that?
I mean, the whole part of like getting new jerseys because they can't get rid of those because they were permanent.
Yeah, we'll see.
You have to get rid of them.
I don't know. We'll see. I know the Jets are going back to like their sack machine 80s, 90s era.
Yeah, that's the right
throwbacks that Rodgers was wearing when he got hurt. It's kind of funny too, because like again, maybe this is an old enough thing, but like all the teams now, their throwbacks are the ones that everybody hated.
Right.
They switch back to.
Yeah.
So like it's just kind of humorous to me. The Dolphins need to go to their throwbacks.
Yep.
The Broncos are doing new uniforms, keeping the same logo. They're going to have an ugly Nike thing. I think they're going to be the ones that are like, oh my God, but they've had the same thing since the 90s. So, but anyway, sorry, I'm a uniform junkie. I could do this for an hour, but all right. We didn't touch on hockey again. Obviously, an incredible game against Michigan State in the Big Ten championship. I try really, really hard not to complain about refs. But that was egregious. I don't know how you can take the one goal off and then give Michigan. I know what they were thinking, which is you could assume the puck was over the line underneath his pad.
Yeah.
But you don't see that until he comes in after the whistle and hits it. Anyway, they are in the same pod as Michigan State and Western Michigan. They're going to play North Dakota first. I am not the first, not the only, and probably not the best person to speak on this. The fact that those 3 schools and North Dakota are playing in a 2,500 seat convention center in a St. Louis suburb is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I, again, Graham Couch is somebody who covers Michigan State. He is somebody who will be admitted, not a big hockey guy. He's come out and said some things as well in terms of ideas. I don't know who needs to come up with the ideas, but something's got to happen because hockey, college hockey, is a phenomenal sport. And especially playoff hockey, like lose or go home mentality, whatever, they've got to figure something out. They just really do, because there are some passionate college hockey fans who I don't know if anybody has it harder. And then the last thing I'll say, Ohio State women won the hockey national championship this weekend. I know Regent Acker has commented on this in the past. There's been some other comments as well. Michigan should have a women's hockey team. Figure it out.
100%. Figure it out.
It's embarrassing.
That club team needs to be
embarrassing.
Like that's
some of the best women's hockey talent comes from the state of Michigan.
Yep.
Yeah. Don't call yourself leaders and best if you can't figure that out. It's
exactly.
So just I wanted to add that in there because again, hockey deserves more than it gets, and there's a lot of people out there that work very hard and try to have a voice on this stuff, and it's just absolutely crazy to me to see. So, but that. Do you remember? Is it Friday through Sunday? What's their schedule?
The hockey team?
Yeah, 28th through 30th, right?
They play on Friday.
They play on Friday is what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if they win, they play on Sunday.
Yeah. Wow.
But there are games on Thursday though, I think.
That's what I was saying. I couldn't remember. That's the other thing too, like trying to find information on it. It's just crazy to me. But we will be covering that. I love hockey. I need to be better about getting into it and covering, but Brock has been all over it for this year. So we will be covering. Michigan did get into the NCAA tournament. Obviously, they're in a 3 seed in that region, going for third straight Frozen Four. This is the 41st tournament appearance, which is either record breaking or record tying. I can't remember which. it'd be the 28th Frozen Four. And if you can block Michigan State after the year they've had, was it 4-1 against Michigan? Regular season and tournament, Big Ten champions. Nightingale and has done a phenomenal job. And man, I knew Trey Augustine flipping from Michigan to Michigan State was a big deal, but holy cow. The momentum and the balance in that rivalry has moved very steeply to Michigan State this year. Pretty impressive. So obviously going to be rooting for them this weekend to take down the Spartans and get back to the Frozen Four. So again, follow along at michigan.rivals.com for that. Spring intel, we will continue to be covering. Josh will be posting what he's hearing. I will be there overreacting, pushing the hype machine, as I love to do. And then basketball, Brock, like he said, will be covering Dusty May's official press conference and announcement tomorrow. And then that's going to pick up quick, I think, with the portal and roster. And that's going to be moving very quickly. So again, if you're not a subscriber already, michigan.rivals.com. Please join our community. We'd love you to be a part of not just access to our content, but our message board in the community and all of our subscribers over there. And then hail to the podcast. We'll be back maybe Sunday. We'll see. We always shoot for Sunday at 8. Josh was a little ill, and I don't know how you're already back one day later. It's very impressive. Like we were talking about, I get sick, I'm done for a week, bro. Man flu.
Yeah. No, I was just been gradually getting better over the day. I think the Advil really helps. So yeah.
My wife always tries to send me back to my mom's house. She can take care of you baby. All right. Long show. I knew we had a lot of content. Had to add in again the breaking news. Rod Moore has suffered a leg injury. Long-term, it appears. We'll have more coverage on that. I'm sure Josh is probably going to get on there as soon as we get off here. So, as always, guys, thank you for joining. Like, subscribe, notification bell, so you know when we go live. And we will see you next week. Hail to the podcast. And Josh, happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all kind words in the comments, too. Thank you.
Yeah. See you guys. Thank you.